Hello, I'm Henry Keane and we are UATV. We are online today for you no matter what, giving you the Ukrainian perspective of reality of war. Watch in the episode. Russians surrendered to land drones, first time ever in the history of war. Europe with America together to push the oil prices down. Evacuation from frontline areas in Ukraine's Donetsk region. Please comment and subscribe to our channel while watching it. By doing so, you'll help us to fight off criminal Russian aggression. Welcome to the News Pulse. It always sounds impossible until one day it finally just happens. Ukrainian defense forces managed to push Russian occupiers from their positions using robots. Yes, you heard me right, robotic systems and airborne drones. And not only that, for the first time in the history of war, Ukrainian robots indeed managed to squeeze the enemy out, and then they took them prisoners. I am saying that and actually feeling myself commenting on an episode of Killer Bot or something. Russians surrendered to Ukrainian robots in the Kyiv region as reported not by this and that media entertainment or something, but the press service of the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade of the Defense Forces of Ukraine. This is serious. The military tells and actually shows, as you can see, how it happened. They first assaulted enemy positions with FPVs. When the enemy's dugout was damaged badly enough, came the robots with the anti-tank mines attached to them, and simultaneously Russians were approached by an attack by another kamikaze robot tasked to trigger that anti-tank mine robot and another robot for a blast. I guess we all can only imagine what it feels like when you're approached by two robots from both sides in the trenches. And Russians quickly imagine that too and start to give signs, and they're surrendering. They survived invaders, were guided to Ukrainian positions also with the help of unmanned systems, reconnaissance drones, and they're met by Ukrainian troops and finally detained. Wow. First time ever confirmed successful assault in modern warfare carried out exclusively by unmanned systems and meticulously planned by the 3rd Assault Brigade. Slava Ukraini. And more good news. Ukrainian defense forces have advanced in the north and northeast of Sumy region. The Institute for the Study of War has reported. Ukrainian troops captured central and northern parts of Kostyantynivka community, and that cuts Russian land supply routes. The Russian Federation deployed Marines to Kostyantynivka to support retreating units. Overall, the Russian offensive in the northern Sumy region slowed down from late May to early June 2025, and Ukrainian forces began counterattacking and retaking territory in mid-June. GMLRS, precision-guided missiles, and 155mm shells are on their way to Ukraine at President Trump's order, as Associated Press reports. The delivery list we're talking about, however, does not include the entire range of weapons that was previously suspended. Though the US administration has indeed resumed the supply of some weaponry to Ukraine, right a week after the Pentagon suspended all military aid. What a present to the Kremlin's bullshit thrower Putin, right, Mr. Trump? Well, better late and something than never and nothing. It's confirmed that at least 2 types of weapons are known to be on their way. This was reported by the Associated Press, citing 2 officials in anonymity. According to the AP interlocutors, 155mm ammunition and precision-guided missiles for HIMARS systems should on their way be to Ukraine right now, as you're watching this episode. Still unknown when they will actually be arriving. The Ukrainian military has destroyed another Russian Buk M1 surface-to-air missile system that is worth about $10 million thanks to precise reconnaissance work, adjustments from drones and effective fire. Defeat, they managed to hit the air defense system that was covering the positions of the Russian occupying forces. According to the AFU General Staff, the aggressor has already lost 1,193 air defense systems since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Lithuania and Finland are planning to launch the production of anti-personnel mines for their own needs and for supplying these to Ukraine. Earlier, both countries announced their intention to withdraw from the Ottawa Convention, which prohibits such mines to be produced, stockpiled or used. Russia does not care for any conventions, by the way, so while Lithuania and Finland should, they all will start producing these mines as nearly as already next year.
To acquire different sorts, different types of mines. Anti-tank are, especially important. Looking at the Russian tactics, how we're using, but also anti-personnel mines, because Russian tactics means that they use live force in very, so to say, forceful and then quite efficient manner. So we are still, so to say, in the process counting how many, what would be the proportions of the overall package that we will acquire. So, but it will consist. It will take a significant part of our overall investment. So, just in principle, saying that it's hundreds of millions for mines, for anti-tank mines, but also it will be part for anti-personnel mines as well. So, it's still in the process of really evaluating and deciding. So, it will be a significant amount.
Well, amen to that. The Russian army is increasing the number of assault UAVs and decoys used in attacks on Ukraine. Yuri Ignat, the head of the communication department of the Air Force of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, said this on air of the Ukrainian telethon. According to him, during the penultimate shelling, the Russian Federation launched more than 300 assault UAVs, while the rest were just decoy drones.
Fly in groups, they can fly quite close to each other. Therefore, radar may show that it is one Shahed, but in fact there may be four. Or there may be one imitator drone, but there may be 4 or 5 others. Then they can separate and fly in different directions from different sides to attack this or that target. Of course, there are peculiarities of flight parameters. If we are talking about radar detection, a marker on the monitor, when approaching the target of the object to the observation points, where visually and acoustically also goes the identification of this or that target, and a decision is already made when we know that it is a combat drone or an imitator. Yuri Ignat, head of the Air Force Communications Department, on the air of the Ukrainian telethon.
Every third target hit in general successfully targeted by the Ukrainian military in June must be favored to the account of the Unmanned System Forces. The Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky, has said during the previous month alone, the Unmanned System Forces hit almost 20,000 targets. The Commander-in-Chief also notes that he actively supports the development of the use of UAVs, especially the intercepting ones.
This is a very important moment in the war. We can survive on the battlefield if we skillfully use drones, increase their quantity and quality. Drones help us destroy more invaders, and above all, infantry, which is most effective in the offensive. At the same time, unmanned systems help save the lives of our warriors, both UAVs and ground-based robotic systems. After all, medical evacuation and logistics with the help of UAVs are also among our priorities. Alexander Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, during the report of the Commander of the Unmanned Systems Force.
To add to the topic of drones, the overnight attack on Kyiv lasted all throughout the night. It is known so far that 2 people were killed and at least 16 injured. According to Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko, the terrible consequences of the nighttime attack are clearly seen in 8 districts of the capital. Residential, medical, educational, commercial and transport infrastructure have been damaged. As a result of the attack, the office of the Ukrainian TV channel, Channel 5, also suffered significant damage. Destruction in the studio, parts of the filming equipment has been destroyed and journalist workspaces have been damaged. On the night of July 10th, Russia launched another large-scale air raid on Ukraine, firing 415 drones and missiles. That translates to 397 Shahed attack drones and decoy UAVs of various types, 8 Iskander and ballistic missiles, 6 Kh-101 cruise missiles, 4 S-300 surface-to-air guided missiles. Ukrainian air defense forces intercepted and destroyed successfully over 90% of the airborne threats. This is an obvious escalation of terror by Russia. Hundreds of Shaheeds every night, constant strikes, massive attacks against Ukrainian cities. This means acceleration is needed. This is how President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, responded to the massive Russian strike. Obviously, he once again recently called for speeding up sanctions against the terrorist country Russia.
Another evidence proving the need for sanctions, painful sanctions against oil, which has been fueling Moscow's war machine with money for over 3 years of war. Secondary sanctions against those who buy this oil and sponsor the killings. Our partners know how to apply pressure in a way that forces Russia to think about ending the war, not launching new strikes. Everyone who wants peace must act. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
So more updates. The first ever unmanned combat operation when the enemy surrendered to the robotic systems and increased Russian reliance on drones against the more traditional cruise missile signal of the two urgent needs. Obviously, increased drones production for Ukraine and increased sanctions against Russia. Not to allow them to make more drones. Sounds simple, right? US President Donald Trump stated that as long as large-scale military conflicts continue in the world, oil prices need to remain low. Trump called on all parties capable of influencing the situation to prevent increase in oil prices.
Everyone, keep oil prices down. I'm watching. You are playing right now into the hands of the enemy. Don't do it. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, on Truth Social.
After the United States president announced a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, oil prices plummeted dramatically. As reported by Reuters, the situation eased fears of potential supply disruptions from the Middle East, a key oil-producing region. Iran is the third largest oil producer in OPEC. The easing of these tensions will allow Tehran to increase exports and stabilize supply, which is crucial for global prices. The reduced oil price cap must be included in the EU's 18th sanctions package against Russia, or Estonia will block its adoption. This was stated by Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna in an interview with ERR. He explained that the proposal to lower the cap from $60 to $45 per barrel was part of the European Commission's original draft, and Estonia strongly disagrees with the desire of some countries to soften this measure.
The current price cap of $60 has been in place for 2 years and has not been allowed because leading Western countries did not support such a step. However, there are no signs that the G7 countries are also ready to further reduce the price cap on Russian oil. In addition, in recent days, signals have come from the United States indicating a willingness to increase pressure on Russia, which is waging an aggressive war in Ukraine through new restrictions. If the package of sanctions developed by U.S. Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal and the new package of sanctions from the European Union come into effect simultaneously, this could have a serious impact on Moscow. Magnus Tsahkna, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Estonia, in an interview with ERR.
My colleague correspondent Vitaly Sizov had a rare chance to talk to my fellow Latvian, Valdis Dombrovskis, the EU Commissioner for Economy and Productivity, an interview for your attention.
So far we have already provided close to 165 billion euros of support to Ukraine, counting different kind of support. Right now we are also Ukraine facility ongoing till 2027, and also the G7 era loans initiative. Actually we are disbursing this week another billion euros from this era loans initiative. And in a context of next multi-annual budget of the European Union, the budget which will start at 2028, we are working on support Ukraine in this multi-annual budget, both for reconstruction, but also to support Ukraine in its path towards European Union. At this stage, I cannot comment specific figures on or mechanisms, because we are still working on a proposal, and we intend to unveil this European Commission proposal for a next multi-annual financial framework next week.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived to Italy for the conference of the reconstruction and rebuilding of Ukraine. He urged partners to increase air defense supplies to Ukraine because Putin does not really want peace, obviously. Right after the suspension of military aid supplies to Ukraine, Russian drones and missiles hit the capital of Kyiv with increased intensity. Here next what the president of Ukraine had to say.
All our partners, increase your investments. When Russia increases its attacks, we cannot have a shortage of funding for drone production. More than 30 countries and hundreds of companies are represented at the conference today. And we must reach a point where Ukraine's air defense and drone sector is supported by over 30 countries and backed by hundreds of companies, not only from Ukraine, but also from Europe, the United States, and beyond. Please speak to our team for details. Ukraine has some of the world's most advanced drone technologies for both offensive and defensive, and we are ready to share this expertise and these technologies with our partners.
President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy is on a two-day working visit to Italy. The day before, he met with President of Italy Sergio Mattarella and Pope Francis. The Vatican reports that Zelenskyy and the Pontiff discussed the ongoing war and the urgent need to achieve a just and lasting peace.
During the cordial conversation, the importance of dialogue as the preferred means of ending hostilities was reaffirmed. The Holy Father expressed his sorrow for the victims and renewed his prayers and closeness to the Ukrainian people, encouraging every effort aimed at the release of prisoners and the search for shared solutions. The Holy Father reiterated the willingness to welcome representatives of Russia and Ukraine to the Vatican for negotiations. From the Vatican statement.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy also said that he had discussed with the Pope the return of Ukrainian children, those abducted by Russia, and the possibility of involving the Vatican in the peace negotiation process. The Ukrainian president also thanked the Pontiff for the meeting and a thorough conversation. Zelenskyy emphasized that Kyiv appreciates indeed the Vatican's support and prayers for the sake of achieving peace in Ukraine.
I thank the Pope especially for his support of Ukrainian children, particularly those returned from Russian captivity. Ukrainian children have the opportunity for rehabilitation and recreation in Italy, and such hospitality and sincerity are extremely important. Today we discussed further efforts of the Vatican to return Ukrainian children who were kidnapped by Russia. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, in Telegram.
Also, Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with U.S. President's Special Representative for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg. The Ukrainian leader thanked him for participating in the conference on Ukraine's recovery, where Kellogg leads the American delegation. They also discussed arms supply, strengthening air defense, and tougher sanctions against Russia.
We discussed arms deliveries and strengthening air defense. Against the background of increasing Russian attacks, this is one of the priorities. We also talked about the purchase of American weapons, joint defense production and localization in Ukraine. We focused in detail on sanctions pressure. We realized that we need tougher restrictions against the Russian energy sector and especially secondary sanctions against buyers of Russian oil. We hope for movement of Senators Graham and Blumenthal's bill in the U.S. Congress. This is something that could certainly make Russia think more about peace. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The mass evacuation of civilians from Frontline settlements continues in Donetsk region. Since the beginning of the week, local authorities, volunteers and police have evacuated more than 300 people already, including 36 children, from the hotspots of the region. Together with volunteers, our film crew took part in the evacuation of Kostyantynivka for you.
We leave early in the morning to evacuate civilians from the frontline city of Kostyantynivka. Volunteer Yevgeny has received several evacuation requests, but the car is small, so he plans to make several trips. The road is almost empty. The few vehicles we see are moving at high speed. This stretch is monitored by Russian drones, so everyone tries to get through as quickly as possible. This part of Kostyantynivka is one of the most dangerous due to constant shelling by Russian forces. Just days ago, occupiers struck the city market, where a few outlets were still working. Nearby, a residential building is still smouldering after a fire.
So you're not getting up?
No.
That's right.
Why tempt fate?
In the courtyard, the evacuation team is already met by Olga, surrounded by a few bags and neighbours saying goodbye.
Goodbye, girls. Take care.
Go, Ola. Wishing you the best. Be safe.
Olga says the most precious thing she's taking is her pet, Richie. We load into the car as the sound of shelling echoes in the background. Is it always like this?
Yes, always. It's only getting worse. Just yesterday, people got trapped under the rubble. I have no strength left to stay.
The goal now is to get out of the city as fast as we came in.
At any moment, they can hit any vehicle. When a drone runs low on battery at the edge of Kostyantynivka, the Russians start targeting everything, military or civilian.
On the way, Olga shares that she lives on the 9th floor. The night before the evacuation, the shelling was so intense that she sat in the hallway until morning.
Since the beginning of July, it's been hell. Before it was bearable, but now it's just too much.
Yevgeny transfers Olga to another vehicle that will take her to Dnipro, where her relatives are waiting. He then rushes back to Kostyantynivka to evacuate a 79-year-old woman with limited mobility. How was the ride? All okay?
Yes, all good. Thank you so much.
Recently, neighbours have been looking after Alexandra. The elderly woman lost the ability to walk not long ago.
My daughter left, and my son-in-law begged me, saying, "I'll get on my knees. Just come with us." But I could still walk then.
From Drushkivka, she'll be transported to another region by a modern ambulance equipped with advanced medical equipment.
I'll be constantly monitoring her blood pressure, pulse, and all vital signs. If she needs anything, pain relief or emergency care, we're prepared to provide it during the trip.
More and more residents of Kostyantynivka are choosing to evacuate. Every day, about a dozen evacuation teams arrive in the city. Around 8,500 civilians still remain. Reported by Alyona Romova, Yevgeny Karmazin, Alexander Kolichev from Donetsk region, UATV News.
Well, that seems to be it for today. My name is Henry Keane, and we are, that's right, News Pulse at UATV. Well, thank you so very much for your time and for your attention. We appreciate that a lot as you help us to make Ukrainian voice to be heard worldwide indeed. Please join the fight for freedom and sovereignty by subscribing to our channel. Hope to see you with us every day. Thank you. Goodbye.